Today's episode of Keep Diggin is sponsored by Jaeger Funeral Home in Ligonier, Indiana. Serving Northeast Indiana with sensitivity, compassion, and respect for over a decade. My friend Daniel and his staff remind you to keep pushing forward and embrace the faith, family, and the fight of life to just keep digging. You can call them at 260-894-4900 or online at JaegerFuneralHome.com.
Faith, family, fight. Going through the fight of your life?
How you want to fight?
You're not alone. Keep digging. Keep digging. Keep digging. It's time to keep digging, and here's your host, Gran Roberts.
I had no idea how often you'd be taking your life in your own hands until you teach your kids how to drive. Welcome to Keep Digging. I'm your host, Gran Roberts. And Keep Digging this week, we're going to be talking about fatherhood. But before that, Matt, how's your week, buddy?
Not too bad. Just trying to stay cool, and I love the AC.
Oh, man. I love the AC. You know, I went outside earlier, and I thought I was going to turn into mush.
Oh, really? Well, that's not good.
It's not good. It's not good
gravy would have been better.
Gravy,
I would have accepted that one.
You know, speaking of gravy, of food, we had our good friend John McKee on last week talking about how he uses a simple item like a can of food, can of tomato soup, if you will.
Or a delicious donut.
Or delicious donut. Oh, yes, because
Yeah.
we found out that he is a huge fan of donuts, but not so much steak. That surprised me.
I was a little disappointed. I'm still praying for him.
Oh, yes, definitely.
He's in our thoughts and prayers.
If you like to pray for John, you can do so by going to the window, and you can actually pray with him in Goshen, Indiana. I'm sure he would covet your prayers. John took a simple can of food and used it as a ministry tool to reach out to other people, to be Christ, and to really plant that seed. And quite often, you know, we have those simple things in our lives. We don't really use them. We don't even think to use them as an outreach tool. Talking with John, I realized we all have the ability and the power to reach out to those in need and to be Jesus, because, hey, most of us have a can of food in our cupboard that we could do without, right?
And speaking about that, too, I believe that you've had some come to Jesus moments yourself with some driving here lately.
Ooh. Oh, yes. Speaking of coveting your prayers, we've been teaching my soon-to-be 16-year-old daughter how to drive here recently. And, man, you know, I always thought I was a risk taker. Until now. Now I know I'm a risk taker. I don't remember learning how to drive being this scary when it was me, but I'm seeing now how my dad must have felt.
Well, I know how my mom felt. I looked over there occasionally when I wasn't supposed to, and I don't know if her eyes were supposed to be closed and in with her hands, you know, crossed and just, you know, praying. Rosaries, I think, were involved. I'm not positive on that one.
Now, did you actually stay on the road? Because that's something we're having an issue with.
I cannot confirm nor deny that after the fact, but there may have been times where the escort may have gone a little bit wide. We'll go wide. We'll say wide.
Your mom's like, Matt, this is not a 4-lane.
Well, what's sad is that Liam's picked up on my habits with his driving ability with his Jeep in the yard. He makes wide turns and very close turns to some very pieces of equipment that I find dear to my heart, like my grill.
Oh, yeah, you gotta hide that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. You know, there is one incident I remember with my dad. I had gone through driver's training, and my driver's training instructor is actually my speech and my radio coach. So while he's teaching me how to drive,
You're practicing.
Yeah, I'm practicing.
That's why you were so good. You had some extra time in.
well, good at like maybe speech because I was doing horrible driving, but somehow he passed me.
Well, you talked your way out of it with
I
your
did.
speech. That's what happened.
Totally did. Oh, not only that, but he gave me a waiver. So I didn't have to take the driving test.
That 50 that you slipped him kind of helped too,
It
didn't
probably did, now that I think about it. Oh, Pat Carter, what a guy. So, you know, I come home and I'm like, hey, Dad, look, I got my waiver. I don't have to take the driving test. And Dad's like, wow, son, this is great. And he shared with me about how when he took his driving test, how he failed it the first time because he used 2 feet. Because he was used to driving a stick shift, and he took the test in a regular automatic transmission. which he didn't have a whole lot of time with, or, he wasn't used to it. So they failed him just because of that. Second time he did well, he did fine. Kind of had that moment, he was telling me about this stuff, and he's like, hey, let's go to your Aunt Ida's. I got this really great, funny 4'11" Aunt Ida. She's like a little pistol, man. She's awesome. And I wanted to go over there and say, hey, Aunt Ida, look, I got my permit, and I don't have to take the driver's test when I get my license. And so I said, yeah, Dad, let's do that. And as we're driving over there, we're going down Lincoln Way West in Ligonier, Indiana. And for the first time in my dad's life, I remember my dad sitting there clutching the doors, like on the side with both hands. It's a very narrow road.
Right, yes.
And I kept hopping up onto the curb, and
well, it was because you saw someone you wanted to say hi to? Was that you wanted to reach out and touch someone?
Coincidentally, it wasn't too far from where my future wife's house was, so I'm going to plead the fifth on that one.
Okay.
I can neither confirm nor deny that. But
there's a lot of that going around today.
Yeah, very true. So, I remember going there and my dad getting out of the car, and he was breathing heavy. It was like he was thanking God. He really wasn't saying a whole lot. And when I went in and I'm telling my aunt, he's very quiet. I was expecting him to be like, yeah, my boy. Completely quiet. On the way home, same thing happens again, clutching the door, getting out. Thank you, Lord.
A lot of prayer, I can tell.
Yeah. Yeah. And as soon as we got inside with my mom, he goes, that boy don't know how to drive that well, honey. I don't know how in the world he got that permit, that waiver. He didn't train him like maybe he should have. So from that point on, it's like Dad took over.
Yeah.
And to his credit, though, I managed to make it all the way to near 42 now without a ticket.
Well, that is impressive. Near 42.
Well, considering I've been pulled over like 14 times.
That was all just to say hi.
Yeah, definitely. I love the police officers.
Oh, yeah.
They're very good people, and they're really great to talk to.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get my waiver, and Mom asked me why, and I just told her, well, I had it at 9 and 3, and apparently 10 and 2 is the answer. And so that's there were some other issues there too, but that's all right.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to this episode. We're going to be talking about fatherhood. Fatherhood and our faith are very interconnected, and we're going to kind of explore those things. Matt and I are going to be talking about it, how it affects our lives, our relationships with our kids. And man, it'll be a good time today. This episode is sponsored by our friends at Yeager Funeral Home in Ligonier, Indiana. At YeagerFuneralHome.com is where you can find more information. They want to remind you when life has you down, you just have to keep digging. If your business would like to become a sponsor of Keep Diggin, there are many, many options. Really cost effective, and it goes a long way to help out the mission of the podcast. You can call us at 260-205-7318 for more information, or you can email us at KeepDiggin That's KeepDiggin, DIGGIN, no G, today at gmail.com. The Keep Diggin podcast is available at your favorite place to download your podcast, be it Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, just to name a few. Plus, it's available on our website online at keepdiggin.podbean.com. Plus, the most important thing you can do for us, go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating, write a review, but even if you can't do that, hit that big subscribe button to have the latest episode of the Keep Diggin podcast delivered to your phone or mobile device when they are available. Also, Keep Diggin is available on YouTube by searching Keep Digging Podcast. Well, guys, today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about fatherhood and faith. 2 things that every child needs in their lives. Good father, they're going to help get the child off to a good start in life. They're going to help them plant a good, solid foundation, and part of that foundation is faith. And if a child doesn't have a father, they're less likely to really be able to plant that foundation and to really make it solid, to build upon it. And Matt and I are going to talk today about, our experience as fathers, how we got our our fatherhood expertise, if you will.
Sure, trial by fire always works for everybody.
Yeah, I really use expertise as very lighthearted.
Yeah, very, very loose.
Oh, yeah. But we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the things we learned and how it affects our ability to father our children, and to, just maybe some mistakes we made along the way, and also some kind of those quirky moments that came up. But the most important thing we're going to talk about is how our faith affects our fatherhood. And I'm ready to get in this talk. Matt, you ready?
Oh, I'm ready. Always ready.
All right, guys, let's do it. Let's dig.
It's time now. The Dig.
Man, being a parent is probably the scariest job there ever was for that matter. But man, the benefits, the rewards, they really pay off. Isn't that right, Matt?
Oh, it definitely does. And even looking at the scripture, the father is the very first teacher that any of the child's going to have. And if you look at like Proverbs 22:6, it says, start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. Right off the bat, we're supposed to set the example, show them the right way to go, and if you have that good father figure in your life, then you're already set for a good life.
Oh, definitely. I come from a background where my grandfather on my dad's side was a raging alcoholic, and I've seen what it's like through my dad's eyes of not really having a real solid father figure. And I've also seen how it's affected his ability as a father, because my dad, amazing guy, great dad, be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
He's always just had a real tendency to kind of pull back because he never really had that ability to have the answers that maybe I needed at the time. And part of it was he didn't want to tell me wrong. And I've seen those things and I've learned a lot from him because of that. God's put a lot of great father figures in my life to kind of help me develop my parenting skills.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been interesting because I've seen the side of it through my dad, and then I've also seen the side of it through some of my friends' parents, and I tended to take a little bit from both.
Right.
Because there's not a real exact science of fatherhood.
No. Well, as much as modern day society likes to think that there's a perfect example of a father, you see a lot of them on TV and stuff like that. There really isn't. I mean, it's always you're trying and you just hope you get it right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, not everybody can be Cliff Huxtable.
Well, oddly enough that you brought that up.
Oh, no.
That's right. A little prep work that I did before was to see, what I did was I grabbed some famous fathers from TV.
Oh,
and it's
interesting.
it's a nice little quiz I thought we might just might try. What I thought I would do is I'd read you the name, and you have to try to guess the TV show.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now some of these are going to be tricky. Some of them are hopefully you get right away, but...
I'm a TV connoisseur.
Okay.
So I'm just going to kind of throw that down.
So, challenge accepted then, huh?
Okay, let's see this.
Okay. So the first one.
Okay.
Carl Winslow.
Oh, I got this one. Family Matters.
Oh, you are so right.
Yes, I'll take it.
Okay.
Feeling good.
All right, 1 for 1 so far. Andy Taylor.
Oh, man, that's like the ultimate American dad.
If you're correct, it may be.
Andy Griffith Show.
That's true, yes. That would be the one that most guys strive for.
Oh, definitely.
Who else gets to go fishing? I don't even get to go fishing all that time.
I want to throw rocks and fish and eat Aunt Bee's apple pie.
I was just going to say, I don't have pie every day. I wish I had pie every day.
No, I'll tell you what, I had some of that dirt pudding your wife made earlier, and that was amazing.
Well, that's true. It is good. It's quite delicious. Okay, here we go. Ben Cartwright.
Oh, man. Matt, you're making this too easy, brother.
Am I?
Bonanza.
Oh, okay.
Dun, 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 dun.
You are correct on that one, by the way.
Okay.
Let's see if you've got this one. My wife will like this one here. Jim Walsh.
My next door neighbor. I don't know.
Possibly. I don't think the actor lives there, but possibly.
That's a TV dad?
It is a TV dad.
Jim Walsh.
Yes.
Wow, I must not watch enough TV anymore.
You may not be a female either.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the case. You can ask my wife.
So the show was Beverly Hills 90210.
Oh,
see,
okay.
My wife's favorite show.
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, all the ladies like Dylan back in the day.
I don't know. I didn't watch it. I just looked on the internet. No, I watched a little bit. I had to. So, Robert Petrie.
Robert Petrie.
Mm-hmm.
Man, I was feeling really good. It's like you built me up and now you're tearing me down.
Wow, imagine how that works. It kind of gets harder and harder, doesn't it?
Oh, man. Well, Petrie sounds like a scientist.
I see where your wheel's going, and it's going to be completely wrong. It's all right. Go right ahead.
So it's not like weird science or anything like that?
No, afraid not. That would be the Dick Van Dyke Show.
Wow.
Yes.
So now you went way back there.
Well, I did. See, I'm jumping around. I don't want to just go down in time because then it just gets easier and easier.
Okay. Wow. Man. Okay. Tough one.
This one's going to be, this is a little tricky if you can figure it out and talk it through. Reginald Foreman.
So, let's see. Reginald Foreman, Reggie Foreman, he would be the father of the Foreman children.
And that show would be that 70s show.
Oh,
Red. Oh,
I should have known that.
See, I told you. I was trying to be a little... If I just said Red Foreman, you'd be like, oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Man, I can't believe I missed that one.
Now, this one's a tricky one, hopefully, but maybe not.
Okay.
Stephen Keaton.
I'm throwing down here. I know this one.
Oh, okay.
Okay. That was Family Ties.
Got it.
God, I know that one. Okay. Big fan of Michael J. Fox.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, so this one, I'm hoping you know this one. It's a little bit of a softball here. Ward Cleaver.
Oh, yeah.
Another great father.
Oh, leave it to no, I almost said leave it to Cleaver.
See, I almost got that one.
Yeah. Leave it to Beaver.
Yeah, you're correct. One of those fathers you try to emulate.
Oh, man, leave it to Cleaver. That kind of has a really negative connotation.
It does.
Sorry, Jesus.
So Charles Ingle.
Oh, I watched this show when I was a kid.
Were you knitting a bonnet when you were doing it?
No, my mom may have been.
Okay. Once again, that was a hint as well. So sorry.
That Little House on the Prairie.
Got it.
God, I know that one. Okay.
Eric Camden. Another one of my wife's favorite shows.
Eric Camden.
Yes.
Man, what channel is your wife watching? Because this is blowing my mind.
Well, this is a good one.
Camden.
Oh.
Highway to Heaven. I don't know.
Oh, you were so close. Seventh Heaven.
Oh, Seventh Heaven.
He was a pastor. I
looked over and your wife is flashing 7 and pointing up. I'm like, maybe 7 Heaven, Highway to Heaven.
Okay.
I was thinking it might have been the dude in the A's hat that Michael Landon was always talking to, but I don't remember him having kids, but maybe he did.
All right, now so here's the bonus question. If you can get this, then you win.
Ooh, man, I'm feeling tough about this now.
All right, now this may or may not actually be a TV father, but he is a famous father.
Okay.
All right. Christopher Summers.
Oh, man, this is another one of those that your wife watches, right?
Oh no. This would be a father that I probably would have watched more likely. A show, possibly.
Like Family Guy?
No.
I don't have a clue, man.
See, and this is why I'm trying to help you with the Marvel Comics. That is, of course, Scott Summers' dad, Cyclops. So his dad, however, is Corsair.
One of the Starjammers.
Exactly. See, and you don't have that in DC. You have that in Marvel. Have that great father figure.
But he kind of abandoned his son, though.
But he thought he was dead. That's what happened. Remember, you gotta remember the storyline.
That's true. Wow.
Just trying to help you out.
Wow.
I'll make you a Marvel fan eventually. You'll come to the dark side.
I say that with a Captain America and an Iron Man pillow on my couch. So,
exactly.
Ironically.
Small step.
Oh, goodness gracious.
All right, so Gran, as we saw of some examples of some famous fathers that we went through, Andy Taylor being one of them, setting a fine example for his son, we can look at the Bible and see multiple examples of how the father should be towards his children, one of them being 2 Corinthians 3:2-3. You yourselves are our letter written on our hearts, known and read by others. You show that you are a letter from Christ, the results of our ministry, written not with ink, but with the Spirit of the living God, not on tables of stone, but on tables of human hearts. as you can see there, we've got to write on an impress on our children.
Not to write on tables.
Exactly, which sometimes Liam does, and luckily it's in crayon. So, and
It'll wash off.
He'll wash off, luckily. But as you can see, you need to exemplify, Christ. That's what you have to do on it. Another thing you have to do is provide for your child. As well. And you can see that at 1 Timothy 5:8. Anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially of their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So, I mean, even if you don't press upon them, I mean, that's even worse.
You see, that's one of the things that, really touches base, really hits home with me, because I never really had that growing up. I came from a very legalistic background. I've talked about that before. And faith wasn't something we really talked about. It was something we got when we, got our AARP card, That's how I looked at it. Like, okay, you're old, you got your AARP card, and now you go to church.
Right.
Because all I saw when I was younger was older people.
Well, see, the thing with ours was, obviously my mom and father had gotten divorced, and so with only seeing him every other weekend, the only time I seen any male, father figures was through the church. And so that's where I got to see a lot more of the faith being pressed on other kids by their fathers. So, when I made that choice that, hey, I'm going to get married and I want to have kids, I looked at the people of the church, the elders and stuff like people like that, as to, how to exemplify that. And I also looked at, some TV dads as well. I mean, growing up, that's, some of the impressions that I've had to have, Andy Taylor, the Ben Cartwright, the older generation of TV shows. I was like, that's the kind of dad I want to be, there present in my child's life. And so that's what I've always strived for, was to do that rather than, try to emulate my own father in that particular manner when it comes to faith-based.
In our generation, TV played a huge impact. And honestly, in the last few generations, if we're being really, really honest about that. For myself, I grew up watching a lot of Westerns with my dad. Ben Cartwright was a huge one. I think probably the biggest influence was Louis McCain from The Rifleman.
Mm-hmm.
And that television show kind of spoke to me, because here you got a dedicated father and his son. They're on their own. And almost always he would turn it around to be some kind of biblical influence.
Right.
And it stuck out to me because it was something I was missing. And I really wanted to go to church, but I just didn't get a lot out of it at the time because of the environment that the church kind of created,
right.
Unfortunately.
Well, see, the problem with mine was that, with every other weekend, we didn't, my father didn't take us to church because he felt like he needed to show us, love another way. So, obviously we would, ride bikes. We'd go out and, shoot guns and, go to parks, ride bikes, ride scooters, stuff like that. Taught us electricity, stuff like that for like 4-H and projects, but nothing church related, because I think he felt that because of the divorce and everything, he just didn't have the connection that he needed to make that type of a stance.
I could see that, because it's similar to like my father, not having, in your father's case, you didn't really have the time, so he wanted to really take advantage of what time he had.
Exactly.
With my father, he had the time, he didn't really have the know-how. And I saw through him how important it is to really teach your child and really put love in your child, because when your child doesn't have it, they grow up and be like my father, which my father turned out to be a great man. It could have been very, very bad. Don't get me wrong. But I see often he struggles with not having the confidence.
Right.
And the know-how to really share with us. And I know he wants to. And as a kid, I'll be honest with you, man, I struggled with that because I thought, man, why don't you just give me some advice? I didn't understand the struggle he went through, not wanting to tell us wrong.
Right.
I mean, I just thought he just didn't want to tell me. It wasn't that. It's just he loved us, and the thought of him telling us something that really might hurt us or might lead us the wrong way just absolutely tore him up. And now as a father myself, I can look at that and I can be like, okay, I get it now.
Right. Well,
it took having a kid,
Yeah. Well, you don't want to tell your kid something wrong and then he swallow it and it'd be like, oh shoot, those berries aren't the right ones,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Then you're cleaning up that mess. That could be
afterwards.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you do what's right, and so you don't want to screw anything up. You don't want to be that guy that that has that problem. So
now, one of the influences I had too is like you said, looking at your friends from church, looking at their fathers and how they instilled something into them that maybe you were missing. Maybe you saw and you're like, man, I really like that. Well, as I saw different parents of some of my friends, like Phil Fott, who is Matt Fott's dad. I watched him from afar because there was something about him that I just really appreciated. And I loved the way he interacted with his son, and he still does the same thing.
Right.
They'll go do things. They'll do like a Notre Dame game with
We're
the
still
kids.
praying for him. It's all right.
Oh, go Irish.
Or IU.
Oh, they got a football team?
We do, yes.
Oh.
We also have a basketball team that
basketball
has won
well, that's
multiple
true.
times.
I'll give you that.
There we go.
But he'll go out and he'll do things with them, even in their adulthood. He's really poured into them. He's poured into his grandkids. And there was things about him that I had holes missing through my own father that it wasn't his fault. He just didn't have those capabilities because his father didn't show him, didn't train him. And I was able to kind of take some of those characteristics and apply them. And then later on in life, I met a guy by the name of Dan Beasy. And Dan became like a second dad to me. And he was probably the John Wayne type, if you can imagine that, grizzly Vietnam veteran. And man, the guy took my kids under his wing and treated them like his own, loved them. And to meet him at first, you wouldn't think that. He's pretty quiet, or was pretty quiet. We lost him here the last couple of months. You'd think, okay, well, this guy just kind of to himself, and he's got an opinion, and Dan always had an opinion, which he taught me when to share it and when not to.
You're still learning that one too, aren't you?
Yeah, still learning.
That's an ongoing lesson. Everyone has that.
Always.
I'm still trying to impress that onto Liam when to say your opinion and not to.
I honestly feel like as fathers, we have to be almost like Legos. Like we need to find the right blocks to put together to know how to be a good dad.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like faith and having faith and knowing Jesus, that's got to be like the big bottom block. That's got to be like, when you get a thing of Legos and there's that big flat piece?
Yes.
It's like Christ is that big flat piece and then you attach everything onto it. That's kind of how I look at it. And it's something that's not easy to come by because it's not like you can buy the box and, okay, there's my foundation. You're almost picking up those Lego pieces along the way.
Right. It's along your journey is when you actually find it. I mean, you don't just, it's not handed to you right away. With our kids now, it's not like we're handing that flat piece to them, straight away. They still have to find it. We're just helping kind of guide them to it a little bit quicker than what maybe we had.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And, if we're lucky, we end up having some great times with our kids along the way. And I look back at my kids, Courtney right now is going to be 16 at the end of the year. Brady will be 10 here in a couple weeks. And we've had a lot of great times. It's been a crazy life, with my health journey and whatnot. But I think about when Courtney was 2. And there was a period of time that we had this big green chaise lounger type chair, Cleopatra type seat.
Mm-hmm.
And her and I used to wrestle quite a bit. And it was a lot of fun. She was daddy's girl, still is. And I remember her climbing up onto this Cleopatra seat that we had. And I was talking to Jamie. And often when I talk, like right now, I'm using my hands.
Right.
Well, we had been wrestling, and apparently she didn't realize I wasn't wrestling anymore. She got up from the floor, just over here actually, and climbed up onto the seat. And as I'm sitting here talking to Jamie, apparently I put my arms out. And Courtney wanted to be Superman. I'm not seeing this. And she made a big dive, and all I see is like a flash of white. And then I hear, and I'm like, whoa. I look down and Court had like full-blown Superman thinking I was going to catch her. And just landed flat on her face. I felt horrible.
Well, that's not all entirely your fault.
That's true. Well, yeah, but she takes after me, so
that's true.
It's kind of my fault there. Oh, goodness. I mean, you're going to have those days.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, I remember when we were over in Germany, he was not even 1 year old yet. I mean, he was just born. And, I'm just looking at him thinking, oh, I am now a father, and so, still fairly new. So I'm just watching a movie on my tablet because we're in Germany. So it's not like I can, go to a movie theater and just watch the most current movies and understand it. So I'm just watching a movie, and it's not necessarily one that kids are supposed to be watching anyway. It's a funny comedy. It's 21 Jump Street, the newer version of it. But I'm just looking at it, and Amy looks at me and she's just like shaking her head, and I'm like, oh, you're right. I cannot do this anymore. Things like that, you don't think about right away until it starts to happen. And it's like, we've got to set that example, and, you got to start early on. And that's just something that you have to learn pretty quickly.
Definitely.
And you do. It's just something that comes along.
Really being a dad, it forces you to look at yourself.
Well, right. Are you a good example? Are you doing what you should do, or at least attempting to,
Definitely.
I mean, sometimes you don't have to succeed, but as long as you've got the drive and you're doing what you're supposed to, that's a good example of hard work sometimes.
Oh, yeah. With my daughter being the oldest, when she was born, I had this desire to all of a sudden be everything she needed. Because, a lot of times those dads don't connect to their kids until after they're born.
Right.
I had given her a nickname, Cordy, leading up to it, but it's different when you can hold them for a dad. The mother gets that time to really feel them grow, to feel them move.
Right.
There's that one-on-one connection there. But when she was born, I had this desire to really be the best I could. And I had actually started working towards a different career like 2 weeks later. I left my job and thought I need to put these design skills to use in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of the best decisions I ever made. But everything I did from that point forward, I really thought about, how's this going to affect my child? How are they going to view me? I mean, it was like the ultimate source of, okay, it's not just me anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas before, man, it was, I never thought about those things. And faith is a huge part of that, because at that point in time, we'd been going to church, but I hadn't really, I was going through the motions, if you will.
Right.
And I started thinking about, man, how are we going to give her what she needs as a Christian growing up? We wanted her to accept Christ when she was at that age of accountability, whenever that might have been. And I thought, man, we really need to kind of get things together. And, we took her to church, little on up, got her involved. As she got older, I started realizing, we live in Albion. We were going to church in Topeka, a lot of great people there. But I wanted her to go to church in her community so that she could be surrounded by friends, Christian friends.
Right.
Someone close to her. And we did that for 7 years. But it got to the point where there wasn't a lot of preteens, and she was just doing a lot of babysitting. And I remember her looking at me and telling me, Dad, when do I get to learn? Man, Matt, that hit me right in the core.
Right.
Because I realized there was a need there, and it wasn't being fulfilled spiritually.
Right.
And that she wanted that. So that's how we ended up at Stones Hill.
Oh,
honestly.
okay. Yeah.
And granted, it's not in Albion, but it's in a very close community, not too far away. But she's getting everything I hoped that she would now.
Right. Speaking of, spending time and stuff, that's kind of what kind of drove me out of the military at the time that we did. We had Liam over in Germany when I was off of my deployment. So I knew that I wasn't going to deploy for at least the next 3 years with being over in Germany. And then at that point, we started thinking and with all of the going out to the field and doing all the exercises and going out for months at a time, for training and everything like that, my thought was, am I going to be able to spend enough time with my son? I'd seen other husbands, other fathers in the military that their greatest regret half the time was, I'm always out in the field. I missed their football game, or I missed their soccer game, or I missed their ballet, or, whatever was going on. And so in my head, I was already getting that next plan. He's not one yet, got some time. He's not going to remember Dad not being home yet.
Sure.
So let's get the wheels started. When I get out, I'll have my 8, so I don't have to worry about doing, National Guard or reserve or anything like that. so I can be done and a clean cut and start from scratch. And so that's what we kind of set our goal as. So, once we got to Colorado, I didn't re-enlist. I was like, nope, I'm done, so I'll get you guys prepped for your deployment. But when we were there, obviously, I had to go to California for a month. I had to go out to the field for almost a month. At certain times, I had to go out there for a couple times when I didn't really want to. I wanted to spend time with my family.
That time is very precious, very important. And I think sometimes as dads, we tend to put a lot of priority on our jobs and what we do and providing. But we look at it from a financial aspect and we forget about the spiritual and the relational aspects.
Right.
And that's something that I've learned along the way. I was very into my career. I applaud you for making those choices because it is tough. Because we think, man, if I step back from this, I'm not going to be able to afford that. But at the same time, there's a lot of things you're not able to do with them anyway. You're not able to go to the baseball game. You're not able to go to the school functions or whatnot. So are you really giving them everything when you're providing financially, but you're not thinking in terms of relationally and emotionally and physically?
Right. As far as spending time, you can look at, say, Deuteronomy 6:9. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Meaning you need to be there for your children to impress those commandments. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Basically, just talk about it. Make sure it's impressed upon them. Spend time with them. Show them the type of biblical life that they should be doing. You can't do that if you're not there.
No. You can't be an absent father and expect your kids to be completely successful and have what they need. If you're an absent father, you definitely can't give your kids the tools they need to be successful. We see it every day here in our lives, how, the absence of a father has led to some really tough situations for the kids growing up. And that's why it's so important for us to act now and to really be involved in their lives and to make faith a huge, huge component and really the foundation of who they are.
I mean, you can give your son or daughter whatever they want, a computer, a laptop, iPod, iPads, all that. But, when it comes down to it, the thing that they're going to remember the most is the time you spent with them. Time watching a movie, explaining something to them, teaching them, how to live. Or in my case, Liam's now finally getting into Star Wars. So when you have that 2.5 hour, movie, he remembers the movie, but he's also now going to remember that I sat down with my dad and had a conversation about a movie. He taught me something, and that open line of communication is there, and it's not shut off by electronics or the social media or anything like that.
Now, have you ever had any moments as a parent that really challenged you?
The problem that I've run into is that my son has a very big imagination. So when it comes to punishing him for something or to discipline him, I can take his iPod or his iPad away, and then he just picks up a stick and starts playing with it. And so it really doesn't do anything to him. So trying to find that right discipline that makes him think about, hey, I can't do that because that's bad. I don't want to get punished. But to try to make that connection, it's really hard to do that when you can't take anything away except his time.
Man.
And so, it's the craziest thing. You take it away, all of a sudden, a book now is his tablet, and he plays with that. It's like, oh, I'm glad you're reading, son, but I've got to discipline you. How do I do this? And you don't want to take that imagination away either. And so that's really the hard part that, Amy and I have is when do you cut that line to where you don't want to take imagination away, but you still need to somehow discipline.
Yeah. The fact that he can take a punishment and make it into a positive is kind of good, to be honest with you. But from your perspective, man, that's incredibly tough.
Oh, it is. Yeah. I mean, and he has no favorite foods. It's like you can't take away, okay, well, then no pudding tonight. Okay, well, that's fine. It's like,
my broccoli is my chocolate pudding. Take that, Dad.
Exactly. There's nothing I could take pizza away. He's still fine with that. Do that to me. That's a punishment. I'm sorry. I need my pizza. You take my coffee away. Fight Club. That's a punishment to me.
Very true. Man, I think the toughest situation I've ever encountered as a father is, this is gonna be kind of funny. You dads with daughters will really feel me on this one. Will be able to relate to me. And be quite honest with you, I hope you don't have to.
But you can leave comments if you would like.
Yeah,
definitely. We would appreciate those.
Facebook.com/KeepDiggin podcast. I was at work. This has been many years ago. I got a phone call from the school, and
Ooh.
I hate those phone calls. Typically, it's not good.
No, it's bee sting, something wrong. Yeah.
Fell off a swing, busted your nose.
We have her finger in a bag. It's fine, type of deal. That's what's going across your head.
We taped it on. It's good.
Yeah. Dirt on it. Walked it off. It's fine.
Yep. And it was the nurse. And when you think, oh, it's the nurse.
Even more.
Yeah. Now there's a second level of, oh, what happened? So I asked her, hey, is Courtney okay? And she goes, yeah, she's fine. But you could tell there was more to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, well, what can I do for you? She said, well, Mr. Roberts, and I'm going to put this lightly. She goes, your daughter is now maturing. And I thought, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. Yes.
Didn't know why this warranted a call, but you're awesome. Okay. She's growing up. I get that. She goes, yeah, but she may be a young lady now. I immediately thought, well, where you been? Like, of course. She's a young lady. What do you mean? And she goes, no. Some things happened today, we think. Oh.
Biology class now running through your head now.
Should have paid more attention to biology now that I think about it. But
yeah. Health class would have been helpful if you would have, paid attention.
Yeah, instead of drawing comic books.
I did the same thing. Mine was sticks, though. It's all right.
I said, well, have you tried to call her mother? Because...
Can I call her mother?
Can I call her?
Can we get a conference call here?
Why are you calling me?
Can I pretend this didn't happen and hang up?
Yeah, I'm totally not equipped for this. And she goes, well, we tried calling Mom 2 or 3 times, but we think she's at work. And I'm thinking, oh, goodness, she is. And I'm a guy. I had a brother growing up. My mom didn't talk about this stuff. It's not something Jamie and I talk about a whole lot.
Yeah, it never came up in our household, so yeah.
Yeah, and so... the only real connection I had to it was stocking the aisle in high school when I worked at the grocery store. And I don't know. I look at them like, this is going to sound crude, and I apologize, like ammunition. There's different types for different purposes.
Yep.
Just
swipe your arm across the whole thing, bring them all in, and you just pick out what you want.
Yeah, like, I got the 9mm today. I got the 45 for tomorrow. I look at these, and I see light. I see full wings. OB, whatever. I don't know how to use them. I don't know the purpose. And as a man that has no experience with this, as a father, all of a sudden I'm faced with a situation where my daughter has a huge need, and I am not equipped. I do not have to handle this. I don't know it.
And that's why you pray for your children, right there.
Yeah. And for their fathers.
And for the fathers, yep.
Oh, so I asked the nurse, I said, so, what's protocol here? Because I had no answer.
They need to have something written down. There needs to be a program for when this happens,
Actually, she said, well, Mr. Roberts, if you like, I'll send you a video home that's for you. And I thought, great, this is awesome. I'm already making plans to throw it into the DVD player and on the way to the store. I was just saying, hey, give me 10 minutes, Court. We got to watch this video.
Yep. I'm a little behind from high school.
Yeah.
Sorry. I skipped that night.
It just caught me off guard because not being prepared, that's an uncomfortable feeling.
Not only for you, but for her.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm assuming.
Because that's the last kind of conversation she wanted to have with her dad. And I know that.
Yeah.
But as a dad, we're fixers and doers. And now I'm looking at my daughter like, I should know how to fix this. I should know how to help her because she's got a need. And it's something so foreign to me. So, I'm kind of preparing and, I thanked her for the video and told her I look forward to watching it. Hung up, and all of a sudden the designers come around my table because they're all guys and they heard what was going on.
Right.
They're like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I have no clue, but there's a video.
There's a video. Yeah. It's a type of leak I have never had to deal with before. Don't know what we're doing.
Yeah. So I was getting ready to leave, and thank the Lord, Jamie called. She goes, "Hey, I saw that the school tried to call, and was everything okay? Is court okay?" And I said, "Well, actually, I'm glad you called.
Yeah.
Here's what's going on." Now, long story short, it turned out to be a false alarm. Thank God. But, Jamie was equipped. Not a big deal. Mom went and took care of it. I think I really appreciated that. Don't get me wrong. It made me think, what else in my life am I going to face that maybe I'm not prepared for to help my children? That's a very humbling experience.
Well, right. And it probably was, obviously was for a reason to bring you to that, to where you're constantly always, looking to improve yourself, not only as a father, but as a man, as anything else.
Yeah.
And so you go to church, you go through those classes, you go through, and you constantly are looking through the Bible. I mean, you can read it once, but you need to read it multiple times in order to get all of the stories, all of the meaning, all of the studying that you need. It's a constant thing. It's not just a one and done.
Yeah, and we should be in a constant state of improvement as fathers. We need to constantly be in the Word. We need to constantly be looking at the areas of our lives that maybe aren't the strongest, that we're struggling in. And one of those tools that you and I have found to really help that growth and that maturity as a father is a program called Fight Club.
Yes, which we don't talk about, but we're going to kind of hint at.
We're going to hint about it.
Yeah.
And speaking of hint, if you'd like to check out Fight Club, August 16th, Ligonier, Indiana, Stones Hill Community Church, we are going to be launching our first charter. The theme for this chapter is going to be called Every Man's Battle. It's going to be an opportunity for you to really get with a group of guys. It's going to give you an opportunity to grow mentally, physically, socially, emotionally, relationally, you name it. And to not only fight the weaknesses in your life, the areas that you need to be stronger, but to also do so with other men locking arms with you side by side. Now, if you want to attend, it's free to attend. Drive to Stones Hill Community Church and park there. Bring a chair, a camping chair, and a headlamp that night with you. Friday night, August 16th at 11:59 p.m. Yes, near midnight. We're going to have a fun time. We're going to park at the church, and that is where your journey begins. That's when the fight begins. If you want more information on that, you can call or text us at 260-205-7318. All you got to do is show up, and we'll see you there. Now, Matt, what has Fight Club done for you as a father?
Well, I think it's definitely equipped me with more biblical knowledge, so that way I know what things in the past through the Bible, how to deal with some of the questions that are coming up that my son's asking me. Also, it helps me to relate. It also allows me to be a little bit more intentional with my time. So instead of just putting it off, you finish it right then and there, or you set up a time frame for it to be done. You don't let something linger on for, 3 or 4 months. You knock it out, you get it done, and you move on. I think it also allows for a type of community feeling. So if I have a question, especially since some of the other guys have, sons that are getting to my son's age, if I have a question, I can, shoot him a text. I can give him a call. I can say, hey, have you had to deal with this? Or in your case, hey, I have a daughter. Can you help me with this?
That would have been a great resource to have.
Exactly. but I can make a phone call. I can make a text, and I can get a hold of a brother, and I can be like, hey, how did you deal with it? And I can get better examples than just TV, social media, current, situations, something a little bit more solid in a biblical or a Christian background.
And I think that's why church is so important. I think it's why ministries like Fight Club are so important, because it actually gives you a real-world concept that includes faith, and it's something you can relate to versus it just being like Cliff Huxtable.
Right.
It's not like you can, shake his hand, ask him a question. You just kind of get a general idea.
Not to mention it's a scripted. Yeah. So the TV shows that we watched, we have to remember that those things were planned out. People sat down, they wrote them out, and they knew the ending because they got to choose the ending.
Yeah. In
real life, you don't get to choose the ending sometimes. You are dealt with what you got, and so therefore I think, that's what's helped out with some of the brothers and stuff like that with Fight Club is that, they've been through it. They may have made some mistakes, but they fixed them. They can kind of tell you how they did it and then you can kind of go from there.
Yeah.
Plus, you also get fire, which is nice.
Oh, lots of fire.
It's great.
Oh my goodness. That's we're kind of taking a different spin on that this chapter, but you'll have to show up to find out what that means.
Yes.
So it may not necessarily be fire. That's all I'm going to say. I won't kind of give any more hints out. For Fight Club, what it's done for me as a father, it's given me the same tools like you were talking about. It's made me really intentional with my actions towards my kids, but it's also given me opportunities and created opportunities for me to spend additional time with my kids. Because quite often, us men are, we spend so much time at work, we stay busy with our lives and, a lot of social events and whatnot. We spend a lot of time in front of the TV from time to time, a number of us, and we don't really feel like taking that extra opportunity to maybe do this extra thing with our kids. And I've noticed it's gotten me out more with my kids. It's created opportunities like probably 3 chapters ago in Fight Club, we had an assignment where we had to go out in the woods. And we had this little shelter that we had built just out of twigs on the ground. It took maybe 20 minutes to do. The next assignment was to go back out to that place and write a letter to God about where you've been to where you're at from a spiritual standpoint about salvation. And for whatever reason that week, I kind of put that off. It's one of the few times I've done that. I look back now and I think, man, even then I was going, why am I putting this off? I had until Wednesday at 11:59 p.m. to get that assignment done.
Right.
Well, it was early in the day, Wednesday. I still hadn't done it, and I thought, I need to go do this. This is ridiculous. I need to just put my foot down, get it done. As I'm heading out the door, my son says, hey, Dad, where are you going? I said, well, I'm going over to my shelter, and I got a Fight Club assignment. I wasn't even thinking that he'd want to go.
Oh. Yeah.
And he said, okay, Dad, hold on. I'll go get my Fight Club book and I'll go with you. And I went, wow, little guy is looking at this like it's a man thing and he needs to be there.
Right.
I love that. So he went and got his notebook that we had used for some different assignments and he called it his Fight Club notebook. And we went out there, walked through the woods. I sat down in my hut and I started writing this letter to Jesus. And he said, Dad, what should I do? And I said, well, you love Jesus? He goes, I do. I said, well, write him a letter telling him how much you love him. Said, okay, Dad. So as he's writing this letter, I'm writing about my salvation and the journey I've been on, how it's changed and grown and thanking God for it. And Brady asks, well, Dad, what's your letter about? It's about salvation. It's about where Dad's come from and where he is now in his faith. He said, well, what's salvation? Now, Matt, that hit me like a ton of bricks because I've been saved for 20 years. Now, I haven't been the best Christian during that time. But I've known Christ for 20 years, and my kids have been in church their entire lives. And I'm thinking, how do you not know what salvation is? And it dawned on me, I've never had that talk with them.
Yeah.
And I thought, how did I not have that talk with them? I realized right then and there why Brady was supposed to be there. And so I tell him what salvation is. And he said, well, Dad, I love Jesus. I need salvation. And I said, well, would you like to receive salvation? He goes, yeah. So, Matt, here I am because of a Fight Club assignment in the middle of the woods at my friend's house. I'm leading my son to Christ. At the time, he was only like 7 or 8.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's one of the nice things about Fight Club is that, it allows us to do something like that. It also lets us think about things that we normally don't, like, especially with like church. We have Wednesday nights, you have the Sunday school. So you automatically think, my son or daughter's getting that knowledge. They're already talking about it. It saves me that hassle, of trying to open up can of worms and stuff like that you may not feel comfortable talking about. And sometimes you need to have that uncomfortable talk so that you make sure that they have it, because sometimes they don't have that talk. And that's where I think that Fight Clubs allows you to have that conversation. It gets you out of your comfort zone, open up that can of worms that you may not want to have open right now, but you need to have it open so you can work through it and so you can lead your family to where it needs to be.
Now, Matt, if you're looking at a father who's sitting there in front of you or a father-to-be and they're nervous, they're thinking, man, I don't know how to do this father thing. I don't know how to be a good father, how to develop myself to be a good father. What are some of the things you tell them to do to prepare for their child and prepare for raising that child?
Probably some rum. No. That's bad idea.
For 2 things, right?
For 2 things. It does help with toothaches. No, I'm sorry. No, I'm just joking. Just be open to what you're going to be hearing when you go to church, or when you go and you have the mission, or you have the sermon. Listen to the sermon. A lot of times what happens is, I'll be struggling with something, not sure how I'm going to approach it with him, or how to bring up the subject. And, they'll be talking about it in Wednesday night, or they'll be talking about it, Sunday morning or something like that. So I think as long as you're open to the message, to Christ, they're going to guide you to where you need to be. You just got to breathe, to be honest. Just breathe, relax. No one's perfect. I mean, even the ones on TV, they wrote them with flaws to begin with. No one's been perfect as far as the father.
I've always said that if kids did come with an instruction booklet, it'd probably be in Spanish, and I can't speak Spanish.
Yes, or the Chinese where there's some pictures missing.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some of those. IKEA is not your friend sometimes.
No. I guess what you're also saying, too, is you need to put yourself in a position of where you're growing and where you're trusting. And that's hard to do when you're venturing into something like fatherhood, and there's a lot of unknowns. But with Christ, there's a lot of unknowns. With Christ, there's a lot of trust. There's truly only one known. And that's if you trust in him and you give him your soul, that your reward will be heaven. And that's ultimately the one lesson that we want to teach our children.
Correct. Yes.
If there's nothing at all that sticks, and right now I'm wondering about that with teaching my daughter how to drive.
Well, it's teaching you prayer.
Yeah, it's teaching me a lot of prayer.
Yeah.
A lot of trust.
And I'm avoiding Albion. So
and I would also be careful in looking at her. I'm just saying.
Okay.
But if there's one thing that sticks, it's that. And that's what I want to stick, rather. I pray that that's what sticks. Both of my kids have given their life to Christ, and I hope they continue in that. But as a future dad, if you're listening to this, or as a dad who's got children right now, maybe you're not setting that foundation. Maybe you're just showing up every day after work and maybe watching TV, and maybe on the weekends going to the bar, or whatever the case is. Man, if you love your children, you need to create that discipline. You need to put yourself in an environment where there's other men, other Christian men that you can go to, that you can relate to, get advice, because you don't have the answers, and you're not going to have all the answers. But you know what? One of those guys might, and they might have been there. And us men kind of hold a lot of that stuff in. We don't do community really well, honestly. We play sports really well.
Oh, we can talk sports all day long.
Oh, yeah. We don't talk about the things that maybe ail us or that we're struggling with, because we're afraid of judgment. We're afraid that people are going to see us as weak. And as a father, I don't want my kids to see that. What I want is my kids to see, okay, there's my dad. He doesn't know how to do this, but he's finding out. He's okay with that. Like, it's okay to not have all the answers, but right away, early on, in our fatherhood, we're kind of programmed to think that we have to have the answers. And the one answer we have is Christ. That's it.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times, too, it's, what I always try to teach Liam is that I may not know the answer, but I know where to get the answer. And that's the important part, is to know where to get the answer.
That's right. It's a lot like going to the hardware. You may not know what part you need.
Right.
You go to the hardware, you talk to the guy at the counter, he'll point you in the right direction.
Oh, yeah. And if not, he'll find the old man in the back corner that knows exactly what you need to know.
Matt, one last question for you. What is the greatest prayer you have for your child as a Christian man? Like, what do you want to see out of his life from a faith standpoint?
I mean, as a faith standpoint, I would say that he finds and loves Christ. I don't want somebody who looks at the Bible and goes, well, I can't do that because it's too perfect. I want to make sure that he understands that, God knows that we're not perfect. We're never going to be perfect, but as long as we try, and that's what I want him to know, is that as long as he tries his best and he puts his best foot forward, then good things will happen spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of those things. That as long as he tries his best, that's what matters. And that he loves Star Wars. That's really the only things that I have for him in faith.
Oh man, the force.
It's strong in him.
It is strong in him.
he is my little star. He's my little Padawan.
There you go.
And he knows what that means now, luckily. So he's not looking at Dad like he's a weirdo anymore. So, just his mom.
Just his mom. Oh.
Just his mom's looking at me like I'm a weirdo. That's a
she's giving you the glare.
That's true. Yeah.
For my kids, my prayer is that they continue on in their faith, that they continue to grow. And like you said, if they don't have the answers in life, they go find them. They know where to go. And I want to help prepare them for a world that, one day their mom and I won't be here. And I want to make sure that foundation's solid so that my grandkids one day will be better than me, if you will. Because that's what I want. I want my kids to be stronger than me. I want them to be spiritually better than me. I don't want them to struggle like I did. And I think the work we're doing now by providing them that foundation is going to make it a lot easier even for my grandkids, honestly. One of the great lessons from the Bible that really helps me as a father is the story of David and Goliath. If you look at David, son of Jesse, you realize that David's kind of the run of the bunch. He's kind of looked down upon on his siblings from his siblings' standpoint. I think of my son, and he's so little, and he's got a lot of growing to do yet. And I want him to have the heart of David. Here's a kid that protected the flock. But what his brothers and sisters failed to acknowledge was the fact that often that flock was attacked by bears. By dangerous animals. And it was up to David to quickly and skillfully take those threats out. And they never acknowledged that. They just looked at him for his size, but they didn't look at him for the size of his heart. And quite often, that's what we need to do. We need to find our inner David. And we need our sons and our daughters to find that inner David to handle life, to grow, and to be fearless in their attempts when they have a Goliath in their way. And as fathers, we need to help prepare them to handle those Goliaths, to really attack them. And not just attack them, but attack them with the courage and the faith that giant's going to fall, without a doubt. And that's one thing I admire about David. He never doubted. He looked at all of his brothers, and he looked at all the men around his brothers who were quaking in their boots that would not challenge Goliath, and went 30 plus days without accepting the challenge because they were fearful. And while they mocked David as if, who are you? You think you're going to take on this guy? But they weren't stepping up to the plate. And as fathers, we have to step up to the plate. We got to love our kids fearlessly, courageously. We need to prepare them to be David. We can't just let them sit idle. We can't just not empower them, not teach them, not train them up. They need that faith. So when those mountains come, they can tear them down. When those giants attack, they fall. That's why fatherhood is so important. That's why faith is necessary in being a great father. And that's it for this week's episode of Keep Digging. Be sure to share this episode on all your social media outlets and also like our Facebook page. You can find that at facebook.com/KeepDiggin podcast. And you can also find us on LinkedIn. Both places you can get the latest news and info about what's going on with the podcast. Remember, the most important thing you can do, go to Apple Podcasts, leave us a 5-star rating, write us a review. But even if you can't do that, hit the big subscribe button to have the latest episode of Keep Digging delivered to your phone or mobile device when they're available. Thanks again to our friends at Yeager Funeral Home in Ligonier, Indiana for sponsoring the episode. You can get more information on them at YeagerFuneralHome.com. Next week, we'll be talking to gospel illusionist Kevin Long about how he incorporates his faith into his illusion act. Rumor has it that, Matt, we might be making you disappear.
And I might be calling in sick. I'm not positive on that one yet.
Hey, it's better than cutting you in half, right?
Sawing in half and cutting in half is about the same, but that's okay. I hear I might be disappearing too. I don't know. I mean, it's only been a couple shows though. I'm a little concerned.
Oh, don't be concerned. It'll be a lot of fun. It's sure to be a great time. Lots of fun. Interesting take. I really think it's kind of a cool take on how someone is using their faith, incorporating their faith into something really, really unique.
Well, and the nice thing we're going to do with this too is we've got some, we may probably do some videoing and
Yeah.
we're going to put that on our YouTube page. So, and also if anyone, can't necessarily hear the podcast, but wants to read subtitles or needs that subtitles, it's available on YouTube. So that's where we're probably going to put some of these magic acts up there, minus sawing me in half.
Possibly, but we will see.
We're taking donations now, apparently. If you want, the price is high.
Tune in a couple weeks, and we'll find out if Matt disappears during Kevin's act. We'll also find out how Kevin incorporates that faith in a very unique way. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a great, great time. Well, guys, we'll see you in 2 weeks. Matt and I want to thank you for joining us to talk about fatherhood this week. Be sure to give them a hug. Thank them for being the father that they were. And, maybe your dad's not around. In that case, thank God for the father he provided you. And maybe that father's not your blood father, but thank him for the fatherly figures in your life. Whoever your father is, your father figure is, just talk to God, talk to them, thank them, hug them, love them. Guys, until next time, just keep fighting and just keep digging.
Faith, family, fight.
There may be only minutes, seconds left of someone's life. Why waste time?
Just keep digging.